Hello and welcome back to Continental Club, where we discuss the hottest topics in European football. Joining me today is the usual lineup. I've got Henry Hill and Michael McCubs in. Henri, how are you, man?
Yeah, right. I just woke up. I've seen that, Benitez is favourites for the Everton job. I've seen that apparently Gattuso's left Fiorentina after 3 weeks, which is about the most predictable thing you can ever possibly imagine. Apparently it's because Jorge Mendes is his agent and wanted Fiorentina to buy loads of his players, and they were like, no. Which is just, you can't make it up really about those. Ramos has left Real Madrid, so I feel like it's all happening. But Dougie, I want to know from you, who are you supporting for the big clash, England versus Scotland? I know it's what everyone wants to know at home.
Well, I mean, it's difficult. I won't lie, it is really difficult. Grew up in Scotland, but I've always been an English football fan. Don't have any affiliation with the Scottish Football Club. Always been a Premier League fan rather than the Scottish Premiership. So I've always, supported England in football, despite supporting Scotland in rugby. So it is very confusing. It's very confusing. But you try to be a dual national and get half and half in your blood. It's very difficult. So I will be supporting England, but I'll be rooting for Scotland in every other game, which looks like it might just be the 3, but we'll see, having had that loss to Czech Republic. But it's going to be difficult. I mean, McCubs, this goes out a few hours beforehand. How are you feeling pre-England Scotland as well?
Yeah, I mean, similarly, I'm not a full-blooded Scot like yourself, Dukes, but I do have kind of Scottish roots as well. So I always, when England Scotland have ever played in the past, I've never been that asked about the result. And I was kind of getting ready for that this weekend, but now there's just that dilemma of Scotland having lost. So if England do beat Scotland, that potentially puts them out of the competition, doesn't it? And I do want them to do well. But yeah, so I don't know really. I think I'll just see how I feel on Friday. This is obviously recorded on a Thursday, but I think I will be rooting for England. Primarily, but
England are going to destroy Scotland. I'm telling you now.
I think it's going to be really nervy. I don't think it's going to have a lot of goals in it as well. I am wearing my Scotland shirt today to sort of make my soul feel a bit better for the confliction I'm giving it tomorrow. But anyway, let's crack on with the show, because we're actually going to park the Euros until our big match preview. And instead, we wanted to talk about the fact that Barcelona might be close to capturing Memphis Depay. So Ishant3 said, do you think Barcelona needed to sign Memphis Depay? And that's what we're going to analyse in this week's Continental Club. So Fabrizio Romano tweeted on Tuesday that the deal was done, that his lawyers were now checking the contract in order to complete the deal this week. Sport, the Barcelona-based newspaper, claim he'll be unveiled next week. So today we want to analyse whether they needed to sign him and how Ronald Koeman, because it's definitely going to be Ronald Koeman next season now, how his side is going to line up in 2021, 2022, which is a mouthful that I still haven't gotten quite used to. Henry, let's kick off with Memphis Depay, because a bit of background to the player. He has been superb for a number of years now.
Yeah, so I low-key hate the fact that Fabrizio Romano has become the staple kind of transfer gossip, but such is the world we live in. But you're right, if he is correct about this, I think this is a great move for Memphis and for Barcelona. He's 27 years old now, so he really is in the peak of his powers, and we've seen that certainly for the Netherlands recently. He played pretty well against Ukraine. He scored 2 unreal goals against Scotland in the sort of friendly just before the tournament as well, so he is really there, shining light there, and he's certainly been that for Lyon since he left Manchester United for an initial 17 million, 4.5 years ago now. Really interesting article in The Athletic, which Dougie, you pinged over to me, about his time at United. My take from it was he was very much making out that it wasn't all his fault that he didn't quite make it there, but certainly just seemed like the right move at the wrong time for a young player who maybe didn't kind of judge the atmosphere at United and kind of the step up and what it means to be a United player, because there's a lot to it, and really interesting look at sort of how just buying a Rolls Royce was just viewed as such a cataclysmic disaster for the player at the time. So yeah, really interesting article. If you've got The Athletic, I really recommend checking that out. But like we said, for Lyon, what a player. 76 goals and 55 assists in 178 games for the club. That's 0.7 goal contributions per game. And the only kind of negative from it really is he hasn't won a trophy there, has he? Runner-up in the Coupe de la Ligue, and he reached the UCL semi-final in 2019-20. That superb run which Lyon put in there. But it always looked like inevitable he was going to leave the club, wasn't it? They failed to get Champions League football again, and it's about time that he gets to go on and play for a bigger club. And we look at his goals last season: 20 goals and 12 assists in 37 Ligue 1 games in the Ligue 1 team of the season. That is really sort of phenomenal return from the Dutchman there. And let's look at the kind of game that he'll bring to Barcelona. Obviously, he can play. He's been playing more as a centre forward for Lyon in the past few years, but he is capable of playing off the wing as well. But as like a centre forward, 3 shots, 2.9 key passes, 2.3 dribbles per 90, and 0.93 expected goals and assists. That's only topped by Messi's 1.14. So they're really getting a creator at the peak of his powers, which is what I think is quite an exciting proposition. Quite useful. I think McCubs will go into maybe like the formation of Barcelona there. But it's good that he's got that flexibility to play across what I imagine would be a front three. The other like really strong aspect to Depay's game is the fact he gets 44% of his shots on target. That's, once again, Messi's only marginally better than that. So he's really clinical forward, got a really good eye for the goal, and as we've seen, been banging in goals for Lyon over the past few seasons. And he works pretty hard as well. 10.1 pressures per game. He's not a particularly efficient presser, but let's face it, running off the ball has never been a massive strong point of Depay. There was another aspect of that United article where it basically, running is a minimum requirement when you are a United player, and it took him a while to clock onto that. But you know what, at Lyon, he's been that talismanic figure. He's been their main man up front, so I guess there's an element of he can do what he wants there. But yeah, so at this point in his career, it just seems like the perfect move. He deserves to go to a club where he has the opportunity to win trophies. He deserves to go to a place where he can really be in the public eye. He's obviously on social media a big figure as well. He's a big presence, isn't he? Sort of very popular amongst, it seems like, the Neymars and that lot of the world. And yeah, he's just an elite player really. 26 goals in 65 games for the Netherlands too. This is going to be an amazing step up. The only shame about this move, in my opinion, is the fact he's going to have to play in that horrific new home shirt which they've released. So. That is, for a style icon like Memphis Depay, I think that's a real shame. But yeah, I'm concerned about what it could do to the rest of their attacks. They've got so many players roughly in the same positions. But I think that Depay is a superb addition and it can only mean more goals for Barcelona. So yeah, I'm excited to see what exactly he will do there.
Yeah, you're so right. And you're so right about their home shirt as well. It's an absolute abomination. I thought it looked like those photos at the training ground had been taken on a Nokia and the players were just sort of embarrassed to be seen in it. The shirt is horrific. But anyway, I think Depay will be a great signing. That Athletic article, I highly advise you go read it. It's all about his upbringing. Really tough time. His dad left when he was 3. His then stepfather came in and he had a lot of children and they didn't get along. He then had a lot of anger issues growing up at PSV. Was close to joining Liverpool and Spurs, but then eventually Man United persuaded him to come. Louis van Gaal said he'll have to play as a backup to Angel Di Maria. Then Di Maria was sold, and he just never really clicked under Van Gaal, despite having worked under him at the Netherlands in the 2014 World Cup, where he played pretty well. And there was the odd performance from Depay, but it wasn't. He never really hit the heights expected of him after playing so well for PSV for a number of years as well, winning the Young Player of the Year award there, etc. So I feel like he's a much more mature player and a much more mature person now as well. And I think he'll thrive in the Barcelona limelight. But my only queries, McCubs, comes around where he's going to play, because obviously Barcelona have already made some attacking signings in Aguero this window already.
Yeah, it is a weird one that Laporta has prioritised the attack so much, because the attack wasn't a problem last season, was it? I mean, they were the top scorers in the league. I mean, even kind of in that mid-season kind of purple patch that they had. I mean, I say purple patch, it was about a good half of the season where they were kind of the best looking side in the league at least. Even their defence looked pretty good as well. But I do still think that's where their frailties lie more so, and getting that midfield balance right, which I think Koeman has been doing, but it's far from a finished product. Where I feel like with kind of Messi, obviously, in the form that he was in the second half of the season, even Griezmann was coming into very good form around that time as well. I think that the talents of Ansu Fati, Francisco Trincao, they're stacked, aren't they? Ousmane Dembele. And yeah, now you've got Aguero and Memphis. Obviously, Aguero is a full-blown centre-forward. Memphis has been a centre-forward by trade for the last 2-3 years. Suddenly you've got at least 3 players vying for that central role. And yeah, not really that much space. According to Mundo Deportivo, Barcelona are keen to get for Felipe Coutinho. No surprises there, is there? Hardly used under Koeman. Willing to sell him for just 20 million euros. Leicester, Everton, Arsenal, and Spurs have all been linked with him. I think at that price, I think a Premier League club should take a punt on him, to be honest.
100%.
But yeah, it does beg the question: where does Depay fit? And it feels like, the Aguero signing at this point is kind of like he's been signed as a squad player, because I don't see how you can integrate Aguero, Griezmann, and Depay every week. And I think Memphis is definitely going to want to play every week. I think Memphis is probably in some ways the biggest difference maker of the bigger difference maker of those two strikers. I know Aguero is near unrivaled in terms of his ability in the box, his movement and his finishing ability and whatnot, but I think Memphis Depay is obviously in much better physical condition than Aguero, and I think especially if Barca are kind of breaking on teams, I think he makes that attack way more effective. I think he'll be a great player for Messi to be picking out, etc. But yeah, it does still beg the question also, what are their plans with other players? I know Francisco Trincao has often been linked with a move away from the club. Even last summer, I think he was linked with Leicester, wasn't he? And it's a shame, because I've really loved Trincao whenever I've seen him play, but he hasn't necessarily, he hasn't solidified his place in that starting lineup, partly due to the fact that Ousmane Dembele came into such good form on the right. Obviously, we haven't even mentioned Ansu Fati as well. Obviously out for the whole season pretty much, but he'll be returning next season. And he was Barca's key attacker in those opening 2 months of the campaign. So yeah, there's no easy answers on this. Personally, I'd like to see, I think Messi, obviously at 10, the side playing, I think would probably have to play a 4-2-3-1 to accommodate these players. I think Messi playing in the 10, Depay up top, and then I guess you'd have either Griezmann on the left, or Griezmann and Depay kind of switching between the left and centre, and then I guess Ousmane Dembele on the right. But then Trincao and Ansu Fati in particular, whose development was so amazing in those 12 months leading up to his injury. They're going to want big game time, aren't they? Especially Fati. So yeah, there's no real easy answers on this. It feels like Barcelona, despite them, cutting costs in some sense, in terms of exclusively going for free transfers this summer, are potentially giving themselves more headaches down the line. I like the Depay transfer, but coupled with the Sergio Aguero transfer, it doesn't make as much sense. Perhaps if I was Laporta, I wouldn't have gone in so hard for Aguero. But yeah, it's going to be interesting what they do.
Yeah, I'm definitely intrigued about the Aguero one in particular. It just doesn't. I think if you knew you were getting Depay, I don't see the point in signing Aguero unless you're planning on playing Depay wide, which you can obviously do to great effect. But I agree with you. 4-2-3-1 seems to make the most sense, given that the strongest area of their squad is definitely their attack now. But at the same time, if you want to play 2 holding players of probably Busquets and Frankie de Jong, where does Pedri fit into this as well? Who was Barcelona's probably most consistent player across the entire campaign? Obviously, Messi was phenomenal from about January onwards, but he had a pretty quiet start to the season, so I'm a little bit confused about that. And also, they looked a lot better when they played 3 at the back at times last year as well, because they don't have abundance of centre-backs who were in great form last year. Like Piqué went through his ups and downs. Longley had, by all accounts, a dreadful campaign. So I'm a little bit confused about the Barcelona lineup for next year, but Koeman won't be short of options, and he knows Depay well from his times at the Netherlands. Got so much out of him there. I think it will probably work out okay. I mean, there's still some rumours going around. ESPN are reporting that if Cristiano Ronaldo leaves Juventus, which looks very unlikely, Antoine Griezmann might be a target of Juventus. He's 30 now. Maybe he's the player that you would move on, of those sort of established names that you can make the most money from. But I thought he was very good at points last year as well. 13 goals and 7 assists in 36 La Liga games. Produced some moments of real quality. Not least that, I think it was a volley against Osasuna that I always remember. It was just an absolutely excellent goal. And really was starting to link up very effectively with Messi towards the end of the year, and Ousmane Dembele. And Ousmane Dembele was playing so well towards the end of the year as well. Feels like, where does he quite fit in with all this as well? Because if Messi's going to go back to playing on the right to accommodate Depay, what are you doing with Ousmane Dembele? So I feel like Barcelona have created a lot of issues for themselves. But it probably did make sense to bring in a young attacker who has going to have solid output for a number of years, because Griezmann, Messi, Aguero, all over 30, comfortably over 30, and Messi, and Griezmann were the only players to score over double figures in the league. So maybe they did need some strength there, but as you say, Barcelona's key strength last year, if at all, was their attack. 85 league goals, 18 more than Real and Atleti, so maybe they're just thinking, while we work through our attack this year, we'll maybe target the defence next year, keep on, building that differential. And it will be interesting to see in terms of La Liga next year, in terms of the rivals as well, because Real Madrid obviously going through a bit of a transition, brought in David Alaba, who I think is an excellent signing, but for a hell of a lot of money. Sergio Ramos is now leaving the club. It's just become official, which I think is an enormous loss. Atletico Madrid are looking to bring in Rodrigo de Paul. We're expecting that signing to be done for about 35 million euros in the next couple of weeks. So it's going to be a really interesting La Liga title race once again next year. I mean, Henry, what have you made of moving away from Barcelona? What have you made of Real Madrid's decision to get rid of Sergio Ramos? What have you made of Atleti's pursuit of Rodrigo de Paul?
The Ramos one, I think it's a real shame. It's a shame they can. He's one of these kind of evergreen players, isn't he? That I think even if his fitness or age is catching up with him, just everything, the whole package he offers is so kind of incremental to that Real Madrid, their brand. He is Mr. Real Madrid, isn't he, of the past few years? So I think that's a real shame. But like I said, I'd be excited to see him go to somewhere like PSG or maybe Manchester United. I think there's still great options for him there. So I'm excited to see what happens next. Big shame to Real Madrid. And if the rumours are true and they're paying David Alaba sort of £400,000 a week that has been floated, then it is bizarre. I saw them getting all very excited after his performance in Austria's opening game against, what was it, North Macedonia? I was like, come on. He's not, he's being Pirlo against Macedonia. I mean, no disrespect to them, but I mean, he's going to have tougher challenges in the future. Atletico's business, if £35 million is what they're going to get for paid to Paul, I think that's an amazing transfer. He is a phenomenal player. His numbers are just off the chain. I saw them being linked with Çalhanoğlu. I thought they maybe would have gone for that and more cheaper option. But you know what, Rodrigo de Paul, maybe an understated guy, another Argentine as well, who work under Simeone. I think that's a superb piece of business at a very decent price. If we consider that, Aston Villa have just paid, 40 million for Buendia. The fact that you can go and get another sort of similar creator in a similar position for less money is a pretty unreal kind of piece of business. But yeah, just for the Barcelona thing, I am worried about Griezmann. I think Griezmann's probably the one who's going to be sacrificed there. And like you said, there's just so many players, and I think he'll probably stick with a 4-3-3 more than a 4-2-3-1, which I'm worried about where Griezmann fits into that system. Certainly if Messi wants to play a bit more centrally behind the striker as well and drop in there. So yeah, I'm worried for him there. But like you said, it's actually quite exciting. I'm really looking forward to La Liga next season. I have no idea who's the favourite going into the next campaign.
Yeah, no, it looks like it's going to be a pretty even race once again. I would expect Atleti to go in as favourites, but Barcelona with that firepower would be really interesting. I mean, McCubs, it's far too early for a very serious prediction, but on the basis of the business so far, I mean, what are you kind of thinking? What are your general thoughts?
I don't know. God, you can't expect me to predict La Liga next season. I don't know. Give it to Atleti again. Why not?
Fair.
Why not?
Fair.
Rodrigo de Paul is I agree with Henry. He's a fantastic signing for them, and I think will open up that midfield a little bit more. I mean, they've got so many good central midfield options now, don't they? And I think that will hopefully make that attack tick even better, because at the start of the season, I think they were perhaps overperforming a little bit, and then we saw them come unstuck, didn't we? Kind of from the midway point of the season. I think someone like Rodrigo de Paul, if he stays fit, can really be that dynamo for them.
McCubs.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, Henry, crack on.
Sorry, McCubs, do you think that João Felix will be pushed up forward and basically play striker next season? Because that's what I was trying to make sense of it in my head. How exactly? Like, do you think João Felix should be put next to Suarez, literally up front? That's
what I'd like to see, to be honest, because I think that's where we saw him kind of at his best at the beginning of the season, isn't it? And obviously he dropped off as well. But I think when him and Suarez were kind of dovetailing more in the central areas in the early parts of the season, I thought that's where we saw by far his best form. So I'm hoping that's for sure that will be one of the things that happens subsequently to De Paul coming in.
There we have it. But guys, we want your thoughts on what's going to go on in La Liga. We're going a bit early on this potentially, but mainly whether Memphis Depay was a necessary signing for Barcelona. I think we're all in agreement there. He's incredibly talented, and it's the right sort of club for him at this stage of the career. Of his career, but did Barcelona need him given their plethora of options up front, and who will leave the new camp in terms of their attackers? Get all your thoughts in the comments down below, and let's move on to our big match preview. So obviously the big match preview this weekend, it's another Euros clash, and there are a number of quite big games. Obviously we've already talked about England versus Scotland, but that's taking place in a matter of hours, so we're not going to preview that. There's Spain versus Poland tomorrow at 8 PM, as well as Italy versus Wales on Sunday. But the biggest game of the weekend is without doubt at Saturday at 5 PM between Portugal and Germany. Portugal looking to build on their win against Hungary. Germany looking to bounce back from that disappointing defeat to France. Henry, you were backing Portugal pre-tournament. Were you encouraged by their 3-0 victory over Hungary, or were you a little concerned about how long it took to sort of arrive?
I mean, listen, I think it was just one of those first game nerves where it was very frantic, wasn't it? It was a very kind of... I mean, Diogo Jota seemed determined to wind up all of his teammates with sort of selfish play. Bernardo Silva sort of all over the shot. But yeah, I mean, in that game, if Jota just slots through Ronaldo in the opening 5 minutes, you're banking on him to score, aren't you, in that game? And I think it would have been a whole completely different match. As it was... Hungary, powered on by that 60,000 fans in Budapest. I mean, slightly controversial that has happened, but it was pretty cool to see, wasn't it? Sort of all the atmosphere just looked off the chain there. But yeah, fair play to Hungary. I thought they made a really good stick at it, but considering that their best player by a distance was Peter Galatsky in goal, a lot of their team's made up of like Ferencváros, players out of sort of the Hungarian domestic league. I thought they really took it to Portugal and were quite impressive if we consider that Sweden basically just sat off Spain that entire time. But yeah, I mean, Portugal, the key to winning these tournaments is getting the job done, and that's what they managed to do. It took an 84th minute deflected Guerrero goal, didn't it? Really unlucky off Willy Orban, and then after that, the game kind of turned on its head. But I mean, Dougie, we were both calling out for Renato Sanchez to be substituted on Twitter, and sure enough, he proved to be the difference maker. It was his unbelievable driving run.
Often wrong, sometimes right.
Sometimes, yeah. I'll get that on a t-shirt. That's so good. But yeah, it was his driving run that set through Andre Silva, another substitute as well, and got the penalty. Ronaldo set up and scored that, and then the third goal was just that's when Portugal just looked like they turned it on. Rafa Silva, really impressive. I really enjoyed his substitution coming on there. Beautiful passing move. Obviously, we saw Ronaldo sneak in, and he's now scored 11 European Championship goals. He was level with Platini. He's now out on his own. What is he, 3 short of Ali Dea's record? I mean, indeed. I absolutely would love to see it. His goal score. You heard Hartson on the commentary just losing his mind about what a performance he is. You know, for people like me out there who believe he is the GOAT, then it was a very exciting game. But yeah, I mean, other than that, Portugal, it was a bit of an interesting game. They had 70% possession, 11 shots with 7 on target to Hungary's 5 and 3. Hungary didn't really have a clinical effort other than that cancelled goal, which would have been very exciting if that had gone in. But XG had at 3.05 to 0.15 in Portugal's favour. So it was a dominant performance, statistically certainly anyway. But it was just a little bit concerning. I think it was just a good moment for Fernando Santos to take stock of his options, to really maybe mix it up a little bit going into the next game. But I'm so excited for this match against Germany. If the France-Germany, I thought that was a really electric game between two clashes. I think this one's going to be even more open. Certainly now Germany needs to go for it as well. And I think it could play into Portugal's hands with people like Jota. Certainly I hope Renato Sanchez starts again. I think the decision to play Danilo Pereira and William Carvalho was unnecessary. I think they could certainly just have Pereira in holding the field there. So yeah, we'll see. They've got a few concerns. Ruben Diaz, if he picks up a yellow card, he'll be missing their next game against France, so he needs to be wary. And they have lost their last 4 meetings with Germany, dating back to the 2006 World Cup, an aggregate score of 11-3. However, history at the moment isn't quite on Germany's side, so I'll be interested to see. But I think Ronaldo could have a huge say again. You can't write him off. Obviously, he was fairly quiet, missed a sitter against Hungary in the first half, but then pops up with 2 sort of history-making moments. So yeah, you can never quite write him off. I'm excited to see this Portugal team get better and better. When they won it last time, they had a horrific group stage, if I remember correctly. So yeah, I'm excited to see them go on. I'm optimistic. I just think Fernando Santos needs to get his starting 11 right.
Yeah, I mean, they hadn't won a group game, you're totally right, since 2012, because they drew all 3 in 2016 and went through as the third place team. So this was a great start, but you could see that the tension was slightly building amongst the players and their fans, just because they were like, oh, it's happening all over again. But Hungary, I actually thought I was pretty impressed with the Hungarians, to be fair, as you say. Not a team like littered with world-class quality. It's only Willy Orban and Peter Galacci who play at a really high level, but Adam Saloy, I think his name is, up front, was a real handful. I think he's about 33. Suddenly types him in and I was like, can Sunderland get him? But he's 33 and I think he's at Mainz, so he probably doesn't want to drop down to League One. But he looked like if Charlie White leaves this summer, Sunderland should have snapped him up. But maybe a couple of years ago now. But anyway, Portugal looking pretty good. Germany, McCubs, strange performance from them in many ways. I thought they came into it at various points, but were struggling with the pace of the French counter-attack, and the French was slightly sitting quite a lot deeper than I thought they were. So it was an interesting game.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they controlled, especially in the second half, I feel like they controlled kind of decent portions of the match, and you kind of expect that with Germany's midfield to an extent, even if they're coming up against Conte and Pogba, who I think were they were excellent in the transition, weren't they? In particular, Pogba was just superb on the night. Yeah. But yeah, considering that they came into this tournament with a lot of people kind of downplaying their chances of challenging, I think it was a sign that this is still a team with, at least in the midfield, that attack world class players in multiple roles. Obviously, Müller and Hummels were brought back into the side ahead of the tournament. Obviously, Hummels unfortunately did score that own goal, which was pretty poor from him. Also put in a goal-saving challenge on Kylian Mbappe later.
Oh,
in
that
the
was
game,
amazing!
Kind of, made up for it, I think. But in general, I thought it was a really good game. I think we saw that I think the combined XG of the match was the lowest in the Euros game so far this summer, which is weird because I think I was actually entertained by that game more than any other in this tournament. I think the Netherlands-Ukraine game, I think, has perhaps been the most dramatic in a footballing sense, at least. But I think in terms of the quality on display, there was just so much of it, wasn't there? And you kind of expect that as well. I think the one worry I have slightly with Germany is that Serge Gnabry, who's obviously got a great scoring record for Die Mannschaft in general, I thought he was a little bit... he just lacked penetration, I think. I feel like he was always picking up the ball just on the edge of the area and wasn't able to break through. There wasn't... I didn't feel like he was really kind of making runs into the box to get on crosses, or at least the crosses weren't coming to him. I feel like that's a little bit of a worry, considering that Portugal are defensively very astute, obviously with kind of Pepe and Diaz and Font to choose from, all players who are well, especially Pepe and Font, excellent in the air and whatnot. So I think that's a little bit of a worry for them. But I think in general, this setup, this kind of new 3-4-3 setup that Löw's got them playing, really suits their skill set. Obviously, it means that they can get Kimmich in as a wing-back playing higher up the pitch. It means that a player like Antonio Rudiger, who thrived in the back three, obviously, this season under Thomas Tuchel, it gets the best out of him. And generally, I think, the centre-back is their weakest position. So it makes sense to have three of them in the side. I think it'll be interesting to see. In some ways, I'd like to see Kimmich come into central midfield, because I think that's where he's been, at his best over the last couple of years. I know he was, basically the best right back in the world when he was playing that position for Bayern, but I don't know whether necessarily he is at this point, having spent so much time in central midfield. I think in 2019-20 season, I think when he was forced to play right back due to injuries, was when Bayern were actually at their very worst and probably looked worse than they have done in the last 2 years. Not down to him necessarily, but I think what he brings to that midfield centrally is so important, even if you've got the likes of Gundogan and Goretzka to choose from in there as well. I think perhaps we could see that, because this is such an important game, and they definitely do not want to lose the midfield battle. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Obviously, Toni Kroos as well was excellent against France. So I think Löw's got a little bit of a headache in terms of who he chooses. He could just go with the same team again. I think Portugal are not as good a side as France. So I think I think they can be confident of their chances. But yeah, I think they have to get that midfield balance spot on, and especially who plays at centre forward spot on as well, because they can't afford Gnabry to have another off day.
Yeah, I think I'd change formation. I don't think it totally suits. Well, I mean, it was interesting because France seemed to give Robin Gosens a lot of the ball, and his game is like off the ball runs behind the back of defences, and he's so good at getting into the right angles. But it felt like France just let him have the ball, and his build-up play wasn't as strong as I thought it was probably going to be. And I'd probably try and get Timo Werner in from the start. I might match Portugal 4-2-3-1 to be totally honest, and just play Kimmich as a right back, and drop maybe Matthias Ginter and have Hummels and Rudiger as the centre backs. I just feel like this is a game that Germany can't really afford to not win, and win quite comfortably if they want to progress from this group in a good standing. So I'd be surprised if Joachim Löw didn't change it up, although he has been pretty stubborn over the last couple of months or so. But their recent results just haven't been great in this formation. I mean, they've only won 3 of their last 7 games, which was against Iceland, Romania and Latvia, and they've lost to Spain, North Macedonia and France in that time. So against the bigger teams and North Macedonia, they've really struggled. I thought Kai Havertz was probably their best attacking player on Tuesday or whatever it was, but I was surprised when he got hauled off. So I think it's going to be a fascinating battle, but I'm edging towards Portugal at the moment. I'm going to say 2-1 Portugal, I reckon. McCubs, are you in agreement?
No, I think it's going to be 2-1 Germany.
Okay, Henry, you backing your boys?
I just struggle to see Germany scoring many goals. I just think lack of an out-and-out in-form centre forward is holding them back at the moment. Sort of, like you said, like crossing into the box isn't the way that they're gonna beat this kind of Portugal side. I'm going 3-2 to Portugal. I'm gonna go for a thriller. I think it's gonna be. Ooh. I think it's gonna be great fun, this game.
I love that confidence. Yeah, it should be good. I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this down at the pub. Guys, get your score predictions in for Germany versus Portugal. We are pretty split. Me and Henry going Portugal. McCubs is backing Die Mannschaft. Get your predictions in the comments down below. And let's quickly move on to our quickfire question. It comes in from Arib. And it says, which team has surprised or underwhelmed you the most in the first round of fixtures of the Euros? Henry, is there anyone you've been a little bit disappointed with?
Well, I think Turkey off the bat.
Yeah, I was kind of setting you up for that one.
Yeah, well, I was going to say Spain, but I think they'll be all right. I mean, although if Spain draw their next game against Poland, it's going to be I think there'll be a few panic stations there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Turkey. I mean, I'm one of the football Twitter warriors who've been saying they're going to be doing bits of this tournament, but fairly pathetic against Italy. Actually, you know what? No shame in losing to Italy. They look unreal at the moment. Not a dark horse. I'd like to reiterate that point.
Definitely not a dark horse. Definitely not a dark horse.
Anyone suggesting that might be the case is a fool. But yeah, Turkey, even against Wales. Bear in mind that Azerbaijan was essentially like a semi-home fixture for them. Just really couldn't get it right. I thought Wales looked brilliant. I was really impressed by Wales in that game. Gareth Bale showed up. I even went on Marca to see on the sort of 15 articles down, there was an article praising Gareth Bale, so that gave me a little bit of a smile. So yeah, although
Page
they pointed
15.
out, they made it very clear that he'd missed a penalty, but they were quite nice other than that. But yeah,
it was a shocking penalty.
Yeah, it was abysmal. But I thought Wales was super impressive. But Turkey, I feel sorry for someone like Yilmaz. He hasn't had anything to feed off really in this tournament so far. Çalhanoğlu's been very poor, and all the kind of Yazici, Çelik, all these players that we said were going to step up haven't really. So yeah, Turkey have been disappointing, and yeah, I think that Poland result against Slovakia was pretty pathetic as well. But so far, I mean, there's not really been that many major shocks, has there? It's been fairly down the middle, as sort of predictable as results go so far. But I'll be intrigued to hear what you two think.
Yeah, McCubs, I mean, has anything tickled your pickle in a negative or positive sense?
Yeah, I mean, Henry just mentioned Poland. I actually had them as my dark horses, not to win it, to be honest, but I was kind of backing Lewandowski to kind of fire them to the quarterfinals. they've got some talent and experience in that team as well, particularly kind of Zielinski in midfield. But yeah, like they just were really, really poor against Slovakia, and yeah, Robert Lewandowski, I don't think any chances really fell to him. So perhaps I shouldn't have been so optimistic and actually looked at his kind of fairly poor international, or incredibly poor international record, and maybe gone for the logic there. But I mean, regardless of that, I think Poland should, with the talent they've got, should have been performing much better against Slovakia. I think, I don't know, the Scotland result was quite disappointing, although I thought they played quite well for large parts of the game, but defensively pretty poor. So yeah, I'd say Poland and Scotland, although I feel like Scotland were probably getting bigged up a little bit too much, considering it took them 2 penalty shootouts to actually get to the tournament. I'm just saying it how it is. I was back in Scotland before the tournament, but when you look at the way they got there, it's like it wasn't exactly the most convincing way of getting to the Euros. But yeah, I'll say Poland. Yeah, probably been my biggest disappointment.
Yeah, I want to see Che McAdams start on Friday, rather than Lyndon Dykes. But yeah, shout out Slovakia as well. I thought Milan Skriniar was excellent in that game. I mean, that game was just so enjoyable, mainly because I was listening to Emma Hayes on co-commentary. She was just absolutely brilliant. Most people have said it now, but she really does make an enormous difference on commentary, and I really enjoyed that. So roll on this weekend. I'm looking forward to watching England versus Scotland and Wales versus Italy as well. I think that's this weekend. And of course, this massive clash between France and Germany. And it would be great to see Hungary have another go against France as well. See whether France can provide a little bit more, cohesion and attack maybe. It was like they were good and there was great counter-attacking moments, but I was expecting a little bit more. But I think they're so aware of their own abilities now, France. They know that they don't have to go crazy in the opening game. But guys, that's all we've got time for on Continental Club for this week. I hope you enjoyed our chat about Memphis Depay and Barcelona, Germany and Portugal, and our sort of, shedding a bit of light on some of the less talked about teams in the Euros as well. Henry, if they've enjoyed this, what should they go and watch now?
Oof, got a special appearance from James Wayne on Transfer Review. Yeah. If anyone, OG fans, looking at the kind of Real Madrid potentially, not Real Madrid, the Cristiano Ronaldo potentially being on the move there. I think it looks pretty credible that he could be on the move. I agree with you, Dougie. It would financially it might not make sense so far. And also, do go check out our North Macedonia explainer, looking at the history and how they sort of arrived at this international tournament. Because these are the kind of stories that we love, which the Euros produce, and we put a lot of effort into making that video. Dougie, you scripted it, great edit by Danny. So go show that some love on Euro Football Daily.
Nice. Anything from you, McCubs?
We've got a video. Actually, it's funny. Kerma Reeve also chatted to me on Twitter with that comment, saying that it's not fair that we're not covering the Copa America at all. Which, to be honest, we just don't. We're so focused on the Euros that I think it would be in some ways unfair to try and give a very kind of basic analysis of what's going on at the Copa America. But we do have an EFD Explained coming out this weekend on the kind of very chaotic build up to the Copa America. Obviously, it was originally meant to be in Argentina and Colombia. Now it's in Brazil. This was a decision that was only made 2 weeks before it went ahead. There's all sorts of controversy about it, a lot of political stuff. So it's a little bit of a different Explained, kind of football in the context of what's going on in South America and in particular in Brazil at the moment. But yeah, would be very appreciative if you guys check that out on Saturday or Sunday.
Perfect. Yeah, no, it's on Sunday on EFD. So lots of great content to get your teeth stuck into this weekend. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We'll catch you next time. Bye.